finding out that all of this happened to Mark as a child, I was like, wow, we've got to get Mark on the podcast because not only is, the earth science of fossils such a fascinating and captivating thing that captivates the minds of like all children, and at some stage, you know, children love the idea of fossils, and then we kind of go along in life and it just seems like such a far away career maybe for children, or how do you get into fossils, or how do you end up finding T-Rex bones? And like it seems like the stuff of movies like Jurassic Park. And I remember, Jurassic Park was one of my favorite movies as a child. And, to think of even finding a T-Rex back then was like, it just seemed so far out there. But, here you are. So how was that first discovery for you? And if you could just take us back into that time and space for you, and what it was like, and what that kind of meant to you at the time.
It was amazing. So it all started in the small town of Tumbler Ridge in northern British Columbia. And it was actually a friend and I's tubing trip. So we were both avid rock hounds and fossil hunters and just young guys. And we decided to go out, float down the river for a day, just making a day of it out in nature. And
And how old are you
we ended
guys
up,
at the time?
we were 8 years old and 11 years old at the time. And
Far out. Okay.
yeah. So we ended up falling off our tubes. We ended up on the wrong side of the river. And as we were walking back, we noticed some depressions in the rock. And so Daniel and I kind of looked at each other at the same time. We're like, holy, could those be dinosaur tracks? And obviously, as a young kid, when you go and you tell your parents, we think we found dinosaur tracks, they give you that, okay, sure you did, right? But we were pretty adamant they were dinosaur tracks, and we ended up contacting some local paleontologists. It was a college at first, and they said, "Holy cow, you guys are on the right track. You actually have dinosaur tracks here." And they were found in an area where tracks and bones and fossils hadn't really been found before. So it turned out we started with 7 tracks, and then the paleontologists came there. They let us start to excavate the tracks ourselves, which was amazing. And by the time we were done, I think we had a total of 27 tracks in one continuous trackway along the rocks.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was the very first introduction to fossils. From there, we ended up being able to meet a whole bunch of paleontologists who came out to the site, and on that same site, we found dinosaur bones. So the trackway was actually an ankylosaur trackway site, and at the time, bones and tracks took two completely different sets of circumstances to fossilize. So you had,
Yeah.
tracks over here and bones over here. And what we found was a tiny overlap in the middle where the conditions were just right that they could fossilize at the same time. So it went
Wow.
from a one of a kind, in Western Canada to pretty much a one of a kind in the world. And yeah, it's it was just, the starting of an adventure, and it was just two kids tubing down a river. Could have happened to anyone.